new you maniacs. Calling all new you maniacs.
I'm here.
Welcome back, new you maniacs, to the spinner rack here at the Marvel New Universe Comics Podcast, the voice of the new universe. We're your hosts,
Andy plus.
Steven, with the PITT. The new universe was launched in 1986 as an imprint from Marvel Comics dedicated to a more grounded and less fantastic approach to comics and world building. The idea was the world outside your window with real-time progress, more realistic technology, physics, and biology. After the first year, some books were canceled, although we see their characters in other places, and the remaining books have now transitioned to new status quos with more action and consistent creative teams. They've also come up with some big events to deal with.
Yeah.
With our podcast, you can follow along with us each week as we go through each comic in the order they hit the spinner rack, or just check out individual comics if you already have a favorite. We have a website over at kickersinc.com where you can take our season 3 trivia challenge. We will amuse and divert you with a plethora of questions about testing your knowledge of the new universe. We also have a Twitter account at Kickers Inc., where hopefully you can be updated with what's coming up and when new episodes are releasing.
Yeah. Hit that retweet button, like and subscribe, all that stuff.
Can we even do that anymore?
Retweet as many times or re-X as many
I was
times.
gonna block everyone, and then I guess that won't be around, so there's no point to it now.
No.
Okay, everyone, just go wild. Okay.
Yeah, that's the theme of the day. All right. There's no point anymore. Just do what you want. Blow up your cities. I mean, whatever you want. But yeah, so today we're covering a book that is as big as events get in the new universe, right? We got crossover issues coming. We got an extra beefy comic book. And this is the event that really turns the corner for the new universe. And people are still debating the pros and cons of it all these years later. At least us new universe people in the know are. So yeah, this week we're talking about the PITT. And this is Ken Connell was given a power called the Star Brand under mysterious circumstances. Wanting to help others, but also afraid to expose himself, Connell struggles to grow up and find use for the brand's unlimited power while dating many, many available, albeit now vaporized women. Then
Girl on the Beach is probably okay. I don't know.
Yeah. Then a change of editors and a character assassination brought him to a mistake so big the whole world would notice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I do that?
Sure.
Starbrand number 12, Ken Connell, as the Marvel Age recap said, has a wild rematch with the mysterious old man, and the true nature of the White event is revealed. Kind of. When Ken tried to give up the Star Brand, well, we can't tell you what happened, but we can say this: the new universe will never be the same. And that was by John Byrne and Tom Palmer, and we covered it in our last episode.
But will the new universe ever be the same? That's what I want to know. Is it still the world outside my window? Well, not your window.
To be honest, the world outside my window has changed a lot over the years too, so who am I to say? Anyway.
Yeah, so
you take the PITT.
The PITT. This is the advertisement copy for it is: a major city in the United States has been annihilated. The world asks.
By Annihilus, the Fantastic Four foe?
No.
No.
He's stuck in the negative zone. The world asks how such incomprehensible devastation could happen. This is a story of how deeply this devastation affects not just the world, but how it changes the future of the new universe. Plotted by John Byrne and Mark Gruenwald, scripted by John Byrne, and illustrated by Sal Buscema and Stan Drake. This was bookshelf format, as in like little mini graphic novel. 48 pages, $3.25, which is less than like a standard comic costs now. So not a bit.
Yeah. I mean, at the time, that was, 4 times what these previous issues were costing you. So it may have given you a pause to think about if you're actually going to put your money down. But the remember the bookshelf format? Like every company had their own term for it. At that time, it was like popular with these. There was like prestige format, bookshelf format.
Right.
Sometimes it'd just be like, what is the Dark Knight Returns, the Dark Knight Returns format. And that was like the first like
Right.
super popular thing that came out. Anyway,
We get it.
and
It's got a card stock cover, and it's a little bit thicker, and maybe without the staples.
yeah, it's so the annuals were about 40 pages each. So to give you an idea, it's a little bit longer than that.
Right.
And we will also be discussing more thoughts on the pit event as a whole. So
Yeah, but yeah, be sure to listen to the Star Brand 12, which gives all of the lead up to this.
it's I think as you point out, the Star Brand collections include the pit as part of them.
Only in
Um,
volume 2, though. So
yeah. So yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, let's the Pit Part 1, right? April 88. There probably really came out December 29th, 1987.
Happy New Year.
Yay.
Woo!
Just about. Um, yeah, so this continues Star Brand number 12, basically. Um, and yeah,
We
comic
yeah, we
wise,
could
and
say
go
like
ahead.
that they were kind of stretching it out as much as they could, but they have like the publication schedule. And if you're gonna blow up a city in the middle of the country, you don't want to just wait a month, let alone 2 months to get a bi-monthly book back to find out what happens. So
Yeah.
strike while the iron's hot, give them something to tide them over and kind of punctuate the event.
Right.
That part makes sense.
Right. And in the new universe real time timeline, yeah, Cyforce 18 occurred, or that sort of issue ended at December 18th, new U time. Starbrand was December 22nd, and then this is starting with that end point, December 22nd, and going into the next day. So a whole day of pit-tastic pittiness or something like that. But yeah, basically to recap, Ken Connell, who was turned dumb, had another showdown with the old man, which ended up in the old man blowing up a comic book convention whilst merging with Ken, and that also helped Ken to just know the old man's background as a Dutch count. Okay,
Remember, we were sold this as an explanation of things.
right. And the original White event then was the old man trying to give up his powers by putting it into an asteroid in space, and that caused a big explosion, flash. White event gave everybody their paranormal powers, and then he kind of crash landed on Earth and ran into Ken Connell and like, you take it, basically.
That's what he said. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, so Ken, now newly thoughtless and dumb, listened, kind of half listened to Myron about, okay, maybe it would be a good idea to give the power to an inanimate object to get rid of it. But then he was supposed to be able to control his power, and uh, we didn't really understand where that concept came from, but he flew up just above Pittsburgh rather than like far into space, put the power into a dumbbell and, caused the explosion that is now the pit, right? So we'll actually see a little bit of that in this comic from the witness's point of view as we go, but that was the previous issue, which is probably worth going over. But yeah, the pit, it doesn't really look like a new universe comic. It doesn't say the new universe on the front of it. It just says Marvel the Pit, just big long elongated words and kind of like a red to yellow color fade. It's kind of an interesting graphic, although maybe a little bit boring.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to draw attention to it. It is yeah, just pure graphic. So inside the credits says cover design and art, credits Michael Heisler, who is also credited as one of the letterers. And you can imagine that's all it is. It's like
Yeah.
lettering and
Give the
advanced
cover to the
exercise.
letterer, and what is he gonna do? Big letters.
So
Sorry,
there you
Michael
go.
Heisler.
He's yeah, I mean it's fine. But you can imagine like a Todd Klein would do something quite um, a little, I don't know. That's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want what's this like, oh, what's his name could do so much better. Yeah, I don't want to be that guy. Never mind.
No, no. The image at the end of Star Brand 12 was pretty striking. Like that almost would have been a good cover for something like this,
Yeah, the
or something like
sphere
that.
of energy that created the pit is yeah,
Yeah.
stunning in its scale and scope. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so we got a big pile of writers and pencilers. We mentioned them. Janet Jackson as colorist. I think she's the one that goes by JJ Jackson. Um, three different letterers, a technical consultant, Elliot Brown. You got art assistants in here, Chris Butch Ivy and Donald C. Hudson. You get some creator credits. Witness, created by Mark Gruenwald. He probably didn't get rich on the royalties for that one. Ken Connell, created by Jim Shooter. So at least they throw a little Shooter mention in there. Uh, and then Colonel Mac Browning is in there, who we'll meet, and Spitfire, created by Elliot Brown and John Morelli. So now he's at least a technical consultant. So
Yeah, I kind of wondered if that was like part of that was just coming up with another Max suit design.
yeah,
But he may have also been like the go-to guy for like figuring out what like a blast radius and
right.
some of the numbers we're seeing and thrown around in that.
Cool
So
explosion consultant. Yeah. All right. Well, let's crack this thing open and see what we have. And what we have in our first page is of course my favorite thing in all of comics: a big page of words with no pictures.
what? Oh, I'm sorry. I just started reading something that said it was by the witness, and I couldn't keep my
Turn the
eyes
page.
open.
Let's go to the next one. Uh, I don't like these. They have their place. They can, but this basically recaps who the witness is and kind of introduces him to the story. He showed up in the DP7 annual basically as a plot device to, kind of narrate through the origin stories of all the DP7 guys. So he starts with, "My name is Nelson Kohler, and for the past year and a half, I've been a ghost." And yeah, he's basically like mild mannered Microsoft salesman. But the white event blinded him while he was driving. He crashed, died, but his spirit lived on. But all he can do is just kind of float around. Like he can't really interact with people.
It's yeah, it's a weird kind of a paranormal power to be sort of stuck in this afterlife kind of thing. Like most of them are more easily described by because the people are alive and yeah. So
Yeah.
what exactly happened to this guy is a kind of an open question.
Yeah. He did
I
not live to see Windows 3.1. Is all we know for certain.
he weeps bitter tears in his phantom form about some of this. So I did
Uh,
have a good like couple of sentences in here I could throw out.
yeah, I was
Um,
just going to point out like the power they gave him, but
is So let's see. So he's like says he's been watching hundreds, maybe thousands of people gain these paranormal powers, but he says today for the first time since my ethereal life began, I feel something different, a sensation more intense than the pain of my own death. This is not the birth cry of a lone human being in the throes of impending paranormalcy. This is more like the rape scream of the human race itself, just before the white event visited its fury upon it.
yeesh, is this guy?
What?
I thought he was a Microsoft salesman, not like a philosophy professor or something.
I don't know. It's an
So yeah, that is actually
imagery.
kind of weird though. Like his power is to he's compelled to go see when paranormals gain their powers, and then
Right.
all of a sudden in this comic his power is to go to the where the you know next white event is happening to go witness the explosion kind of thing. So basically he's wherever the plot needs to be, that's his paranormal power. But he's an interesting guy. So visually, like he's kind of like a transparent ghost, but like with a green tint. He's got like an old school detective trench coat and like a wide brim hat. So he's embracing like the Phantom thing. We get December 22nd, 1987. He's somewhere in Ohio. And so he's agony, making my phantom body spasm. Like, oh, geez, what's happening underneath that trench coat, buddy? It's got to block it out, or I won't be able to do more than writhe in the wind. So he's really gotten more dramatic since last time. It's like it's so loud, intense, like standing in the center of a million people gargling shards of glass. Okay. That's a very relatable metaphor.
I
Uh,
don't know where you come up with them, buddy, but okay.
Yeah, so he's kind of fun, but basically just sort of his thought bubbles narrate himself and what he's doing. I must traverse the sky faster than I've ever gone before. So he goes flying off towards the source of this glass gargling disturbance, and he doesn't really understand it, but again, apparently he's compelled to go to interesting events that are happening in the comics. So he's flying along an interstate. He doesn't really know where he's going. He passes over like a family in a car, which are assuming will become important later. Kids in the back, mom and dad in the front of like a red Volkswagen, like a classic Volkswagen Beetle.
It's pretty small for a four person family. I don't know.
Yeah, those things are basically death traps in terms of like automotive quality. They're going to grandma's house as the witness zips by. He makes it to Pittsburgh. He figures out that he's in Pittsburgh by seeing the Pittsburgh Savings and Loan.
There is no such thing. But
Oh well,
I think
there
it's
was.
interesting. He's kind of he sees the city from a distance, which is actually something you don't do if you're driving in, but he is kind of flying. So because
Right.
there's a lot of like hills in the area, so it really blocks your view from a distance. But it's not a bad you know depiction of the city. A little generic, I'd say, but
Yeah. So he flies up to the sky, feeling that that's where the disturbance is headed. And he says, up towards the sky. That makes sense. That's where the white event happened after all. The pain hurts to even think. So I'm not sure why he's thinking of white event, but I guess he's drawing some connections there. And he sees Ken Connell flying there. Ken did, in fact, in the last issue, fly up in nothing but tidy whities. So it's just a mostly naked guy in his underwear holding a bent dumbbell. Um, nobody wants to give Ken any kind of respect.
then
Yeah,
the witness immediately assumes he must already be paranormal. He's floating there, defying gravity, and that so people when they saw starring powers, they just assumed they were all paranormals, which isn't technically, I guess, what Ken is. So
true. Um, but yeah, and yeah, so he's floating there, and basically the witness gets to see the moment in Starbrand where Ken's kind of thinking to himself, what he's going to do, and he's going to transfer the power to the dumbbell. And as he's getting ready to put his hand in there, the witness is screaming and moving towards him, but of course nobody can see or hear the witness. You're a useless guy. Curse this phantom body. There was never anything I could do anyway. I'm too late. He pressed his hand to that metal. Wait, it's glowing. Now what? And then we get a full page, 6:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time explosion. So it's actually kind of a cool image. The whole page is mostly white. By the edges, you can see a little bit of kind of the blast circle, and there's little tiny black images of the two, the witness and Ken in there in the center.
It's good and dramatic, and although, as we see from the ultimate scope of this thing, it's still not to scale, like
Yeah.
how
Though I
much
suppose
damage
this
would,
is maybe like the beginning of it or something. As
yeah,
you know.
first millisecond or something. Yeah, the it's funny because I was thinking like if you're, phantomness was created by the white event or, a
Yeah.
paranormality. You would think that like the same power that created you would also be the one thing that would destroy you.
Yeah, it would be. It might almost make sense if you just got wiped out right there. It would save us a lot of trouble, to be perfectly honest. Uh,
At peace at last, says
yeah.
the thought balloon as it drifts into.
So then we get a bunch of panels of the witness basically describing the art. He's like, we get a few little useful tidbits. He's like, there was a blinding flash, just like the white event, an explosion. It made no sound, right? So no sound. Uh, the sensation passes. There's wind and sort of tornado force winds all start swirling. So on the images we get kind of like swirls of color and kind of cloud, kind of distorting everything. Ken gets kind of whipped away, so we
We
don't get.
didn't know, yeah, if Ken had survived
Yeah.
at the end of Starbrand. So it's interesting. He's, yeah, just whipped away.
Yeah, and he doesn't turn into that weird mutated looking Ken either. But he gets whisked away. The witness kind of quickly is like, should I try and catch up to him? Is he dead? Like, well, no, I want to see the effects of the explosion, right? Is it nuclear? I didn't see a mushroom cloud. Then he just kind of gets just thinking about it. The wind, there's a huge vortex. The next page we get a nice panel of him kind of seeing the aftermath. So I think this is a nice image on page 7 where he's flying up and above, and it just looks like a huge crater, like an old asteroid impact. Everything around looks kind of dead. The crater is massive, and there's kind of these colorful winds sort of swirling around. It says the tornado is tremendous, reaching up to the outer edge of the Earth's atmosphere. The city below Pittsburgh is so dark, all the lights out. I can't tell what's happened to it. So he says can't tell, but we can clearly see, it's a crater, right? It is the pit, I suppose.
Yeah, and I mean, this is like this first moment is when it's like a real crisp and clean crater, sort of sphere, part of a sphere.
Yeah,
So they kind of go into all the big um the after effects kind of muddy up whatever it looks like in it originally, and the obscures everything, all these
right.
clouds you get. I don't know, I should have looked it up. In the middle of December, sun goes down pretty early, so it actually makes sense this is already nighttime when this happens, but I don't know.
Right. That's true. Yeah, it'll be dark really quickly. We get a thunderclap. The witness kind of goes down closer, and then in these swirling winds, it's just like refuse, like you're in the middle of a tornado, right? There's a cow, a fence, a car, a baby doll, electric wire, just a chunk of a house, right? Everything's kind of swirling in. And then we get the sense from his narration that basically it's like, best I can figure is like everything in that sphere is just gone, and then that would create sort of a vacuum where the wind and anything else is just going to kind of rush in and basically just pull a bunch of town and debris and whatever else with it, right? So it's not things that have survived the initial blast or the initial sphere of energy. I'm not even sure what to call it, but it's
Mhm.
all the things around that are just now getting sucked into a mess there. So yeah, it's like, unless could the explosion have been so powerful that it caused a several-mile vacuum? In that case, the atmosphere would be rushing in from all sides to fill that void. And that doesn't really
Yeah,
make any sense for a real explosion, right? So
yeah,
typically,
it's very weird because, yeah, I like they're doing it on purpose, that this isn't an explosion but an implosion where suddenly the sphere is just not there anymore, and so wind rushes in, and then slowly water or whatever starts comes in, maybe even the lightning. I don't know. But there's like whatever you're used to, this is like the opposite of it.
Right.
Is
Yeah,
is
there's
part of
no blast wave, no heat, right? No
yeah.
mushroom cloud, right? It's just
So
everything's
the
kind of
way they
gone.
sort of have it, yeah, it's like it seems like super well defined, and so you can imagine you're like a guy standing in whatever Evans City, and you're like, 10 feet away from you, suddenly there's a wall of white, and suddenly everything past that is now disappeared. And so at first you're like, phew, well, I don't know what that was, but and then this all the wind rushes in and just sucks you right into that.
Yeah.
So
Which is a perfect segue to what happens on page 9, right? So
oh yeah.
the witness is sort of horrified and is like, all the bodies, the terror, like he's seeing like dead people and people getting sucked in. And then we see the family he passed before in the crappy red Volkswagen. They get hit by the blinding light, and then all that rushing air just basically pulls their car up off the ground, and they go flying into the pit. So not
Oh, yeah.
not good.
Yeah, when you say like he sees bodies and parts of bodies everywhere, they're not kidding. Literally, it seems like every panel from this point on has like a body or a part of a body flying around or laying on the ground.
Yeah.
Our usual kill count is like, yeah, we can't do it this time.
There is a population of the Pittsburgh region listed on the last page, so we could kind of
Oh
cheat
yeah.
maybe, but
Oh yeah, there you go.
yeah, so
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
not so promising. Uh, the duck's not in there. She was in Ohio.
Mansfield.
That's
Yeah,
something.
so don't throw away the duck so far. They have
Uh,
not.
don't dump her in the pit either. So we cut to 6:17 p.m. Griffiths Air Force Base, New York, and
Do you
where the
recognize
Army.
that?
What's that?
Do you recognize that?
No.
I looked it up. It was a thing.
Okay.
It's like between Utica and Syracuse.
Yeah, I don't go east that much.
Ugh. I'm here in Pittsburgh. Come on, man. I can like
I'm a
the only
Western New
points in the
Yorker.
story.
I got a chicken wing in one hand and, Polish
Anyway,
sausage in the other hand. I don't know what's Western New York.
looks like so this Air Force base was closed in the mid 90s as part of the whatever.
Yeah,
But anyway,
there was no
sorry.
pit, so they didn't need it. But yeah, so we get some kind of generic army guys. We've never seen a signal like this. If I'm reading this right, Pittsburgh just turned into a crater 50 miles across. What? Great God Almighty! That's kind of a fun one. He's right.
He's right.
The only way to interpret that image, or that's the only way to interpret that. Good job, radar guy. You're on top of things.
I
So he
mean,
calls for the chief of staff.
yeah. I mean, a radar just shows you like, something just blips if it, just bounces, and so it's very
Yeah,
low resolution, but okay.
I guess maybe this, do we have satellite imagery by then? Probably, right? At least some
Yeah.
form
I
of it.
mean, yeah. It's so I mean, I'm not so I just looked up that like this Air Force base exists, but why like they would be um like the nearest thing or like have the best radar or something. I don't know, but there we
Yeah,
go. So
the
they do.
fastest radar guy who turned that knob quicker than anybody else. I don't know. From there, it cuts to 6:47 p.m. Lincoln Crescent, Washington D.C. So it's like a big, like roundabout cul-de-sac, and there's a bunch of people standing outside, like they could kind of see the flash, like kind of like a second white event. They're all standing around like that sounded like thunder, but I've never heard thunder so strange. It's like, almost more like an earthquake. And they asked, and a woman, I think his wife asked him, like, Mac, what was it? You're with special forces. You should know. It's like one of my family, like, chemistry. You can explain anything, right? It's like,
Yeah, that's
not sure, Carol, honey. And he's thinking to himself, it felt like something pretty big going off, pretty close by, but a nuke as big as that would fill the sky with light, sound, with wind. And then a wind does come, but it's a helicopter. So a helicopter is going straight for this guy and his family, blasting over their speaker. Colonel Browning, Colonel McIntyre Browning, please show yourself. This is a priority one command. So this
hello, CIA shills in the neighborhood. Please step forward.
is
Please identify yourselves.
Yeah, and Browning actually chastises him for like announcing it over the loudspeaker instead of using his red Batman phone for priority one. But he wasn't standing next to his red Batman phone, right? So
We've been trying that for a half hour, dude. You're just standing around outside. I don't know. Take your pager with you.
letting your hair blow around, looking suave. But yeah, so runs off with the officer in the helicopter and asking him like, what's going on. And the guy says, I don't know, I never had to deliver a priority one command before. I'll tell you, sir, I'm scared spitless just thinking about it. And so it turns out he's got written orders, but they're written in a code. So Mac is looking at it and he says, yes, it makes sense. All right. Delta Vega code for use only in cases of maximum distress. And then he puts on some weird goggles, which maybe allow him to view the Delta Vega code, or just cool sunglasses. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like
I didn't quite notice the like connection there, but it's a interesting possible one.
maybe that's the They Live glasses where you can see the aliens or something. He's like if the Russians have nuked New York. He's like, all right, Corporal, if this information is accurate, I'm already late for the party. Let's see what this baby can do. So okay. Oh, okay. I guess I missed a transition. So the helicopter takes him, and then he's in a plane.
Yeah, so the next panel, he's in some fighter jet, and they're doing a flyover. He says he has to be in Ohio inside 2 hours. So from DC to Ohio. And then he takes a jet from there. That honestly, maybe he's like they're taking from the helicopter from his house to like a airport where he can get this jet and get out there faster because a helicopter is not worth like a.
So yeah, I think there's a missing panel there that would have kind of explained it. But yeah, I guess he puts on his cool sunglasses to get in the fancy airplane. And so he's like kind of riding in the back of this fighter jet. Now they're flying over the pit. And the pilot says, yes, sir. I've got the Geiger counter running, and all I get is normal background noise. Shouldn't there be? So not a nuclear explosion. The Colonel says, all we know right now is there's never been an effect like this anywhere on Earth before. We don't have the least idea what to expect. But whatever it is, it's somewhere underneath all that. And so they're flying over basically like a smoking crater at this point. It's really kind of impossible to see into it. He's like, I'm going to try and raise a ground station. He calls down to Pittsburgh, but no response, as we can only expect. The jet kind of runs into some trouble with the breeze. He says he wants to pull around, take a few more passes to kind of look at it. And he says, we're going to need to haul it back to operations and start laying the groundwork for some serious maneuvering. But right now, I've got one special call to make.
Hello, Domino's. Yeah, deep dish bliss. Yeah, I had to run off without dinner. I hate that.
Yeah. That would be cool if you called Domino's. There's a lot of good fast food chains placement in the new universe. But
yeah, he's
Pittsburgh Domino's is not answering their phones.
If he's using Ohio as a staging area, let me suggest Luigi's, which is in the Akron area. Famous pizza made is the from Funky Winkerby in the comic book uses a Montoni's that was based on it. So all of you comic lovers out there.
They don't have
There's a
a
deep dive.
they don't have a like pointless food gimmick like was it Cincinnati putting
Oh, the
chili
chili.
on top of pasta for some reason? Like they couldn't come up with a better gimmick food.
I tried that finally this summer. The Skyline chili. It's not bad. I don't know. It's a little
I mean, you could put chili on rice, and that's
dry.
okay, but I don't know that it's like local delicacy.
Yeah, but no one's gonna have fries on their salad anymore if Pittsburgh is gone. So think about what we've lost in terms of local delicacies here.
Oh
Anyway,
man, fries on salad? Really? That's a thing?
I think so.
Hmm.
Yeah, or like a sandwich also.
Yeah, y'all fancy pencil, your fancy Philadelphians with your cheesesteaks and your croutons on salad. We'll one up them with French fries on salad.
It's interesting. Absolutely nowhere is like a health food thing, a local delicacy, but okay.
Hmm.
I don't know. Some new age,
Swap those out for
retreat in
tater
New
tots, and you
Mexico or
got me
something.
interested. But I don't know about French fries. I feel like they'll just get soggy and cold. But anyway, he was not making a call to any of these terrible food ideas. We cut to another panel of a big like cargo plane flying near the pit. And we get a word balloon saying, Tin Lizzie to close up. We're receiving you, Colonel. We're on the go line, ready to launch in 3 minutes. Who could this be? Well, it's our old friend, Jenny Swensen from Spitfire and the Troubleshooters. Sometimes called Spitfire, sometimes the suit's called Spitfire, sometimes her password is Spitfire. The
Is
Max suit. I'm going to just call it the Max suit.
yeah, they do it again because the Spitfire runs anyway.
Yeah, maybe she's talking in the third person, like, George is going to go visit the pit. George is getting ready.
So
Yeah, we
yeah,
get the. Oh, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, so like she gets a like a voiceover from someone she calls Wheeler, which I don't think we saw in her book before, right?
Yeah, it doesn't sound familiar.
But
And then we get the teeniest little Jake Travis cameo, like a little blip of him. She's like, "Come on, Jake, let's get her revved up." And he's like, "Are you sure? We haven't tested all the suit's systems." Like, you just have to say that, I think, as as the guy. But she hops in. She's like, "We'll just have to make this the first full scale test, Jake. A lot of the stuff in here has never been used in the field." And he says, I'm just leery about all this. We've never run a mission on U.S. soil. We've been out there killing lots of brown people, but do we have to tell the army boys why don't we tell them to take care of business themselves? I added the
look,
brown people line, but
I'm fine with using this to napalm small villages in Central America, but using it on U.S. soil, that brings up some moral qualms I have. Oh, thanks, Jake. Okay.
and just to hammer it home, Swensen, Jenny's putting the helmet on the suit as she's in it. So, Jake, in case you've forgotten these days, we are the Army boys. Spitfire runs only when and where Uncle Sam says. And if we want to be able to continue to do our good works, we have to do what Uncle Sam wants. With air quotes with the good works thing. That's emphasis mine.
I rescue some villages, I
Mm.
genocide others. It all balances out in the end, I like to think.
Maybe if we're lucky, like someone secretly made a copy of her father's AI program that was kind of a pacifist, sneak it in there somewhere.
Do you
Firmware
remember
update.
me at all, Jenny? I was your father. No? Okay.
Remember that whole thing where you were sad that I died and we're going to, help people with this suit that I made instead of turning it into a combat mech? Nope.
I'm sorry,
Doesn't ring
let
a
me
bell.
I was gonna point out the when we started, there's a back cover is actually sort of also part of the design, I guess. And it's like black, there's a Star Brand logo, and then the three major characters of the book: the Witness, Colonel Browning, and Spitfire. So yeah, we finally got into the Spitfire portion of it.
Yay. It's good to have
Yeah.
her back, honestly, as much as we are not approving her CIA loving methods these days. It's
I
good to have
mean,
one of the returning characters.
Yeah, it's probably because we are going through the books a little faster than they came out, but it feels like it hasn't been so long since her book got canceled, but at the time this was a good 6 months after it. So
Right.
yeah, even
Yeah. So the Spitfire launches, um, and she's communicating with our Colonel Browning, flying around in his jet plane. He says, "You're packing some of the most sophisticated scanning and imaging equipment modern science can produce. Probe the storm cloud and report what you find. So go and check it out." She says, "Will do. Close up. Over cloud center in 7 seconds. Going into descent." From there, we cut to the witness again, and or no, we got one more page. Sorry. The Spitfire suit is so obscured, kind of flying down. She's basically flying down into smoke and steam. And she said, dispatch said Pittsburgh blacked out, complete shutdown, no signals coming out, disaster of unknown nature. They called for her because because they didn't think it was safe to go in there, but she's got this supreme environmentally secure suit of armor. And she's like, I've never seen anything this weird. Maybe Jake was right. Maybe I should have tried to pass on this little mission. But what sort of phenomena would account for these freakish weather conditions? Certainly not a nuclear meltdown. And then we cut to witness.
meltdown's an interesting supposition, even because, a nuclear plant going down doesn't go off like a bomb.
Right.
Um, and a professor of engineering at MIT would know that. But there's also no nuclear plants in the area, I think. So anyway.
Yeah. So there's sort of this weird interlude where the witness is doing the same thing. So the witness is floating down into the pit to see what's going on. Right. Nothing can really harm him. He's sort of ghost guy. As he floats down past the cloud, he sees the city. So he sees the buildings. There's people all kind of standing around, and everybody turns to look at him. And he kind of lands there, and like everybody can see me. He's real excited. Um, he can feel the ground. Things sort of feel normal for him. Says, but I keep hearing whispers. They're talking. I can't quite hear you. And then all of the people on the street kind of turn and look at him like a Twilight Zone thing or something, and they're all like, "You guilty, fault, guilty, you fault." Um, and he's like, "What? Something about fault or guilt? Please speak up." And then they just start yelling at him. You're the one, you did it, our city, you're guilty. And all of the people start sort of charging him and kind of grab him and dogpile him like they're, beating him up like an old fashioned cartoon or something. So a little weird there. We're thinking it's kind of a hallucination.
Yeah, it's a little weird. But you can imagine it's a good kind of cinematic moment, It's very visual and like this kind of moment of like, what the heck's going on here?
Yeah, I'm thinking they're like, well, okay, the witness obviously is going to go down and investigate, but it's all smoke and ash and not really much going on. So how are we going to make this more interesting? Yeah, because you don't want to cut from Jenny seeing smoke and wreckage to the witness seeing smoke and wreckage. And like, okay, there's smoke and
Wow,
wreckage.
seems like there's a lot of smoke and wreckage down here. Oh, that's great.
But we can then cut to Colonel Mac Browning driving a little army jeep amongst smoke and wreckage.
And as I say, like find every panel is like find the piece of a body that's here. Yeah.
It's
Jeez.
not as fun as those like little children's books where there's like a little mouse hiding in every panel or something. Find the desiccated corpse, honey. But yeah, he's actually driving closer to the pit, but he's sort of in the outside of the pit blast zone where everything got kind of pulled in and destroyed. So we want to cover at least another 5 miles before we call it a halt. So he's kind of driving through, and orders all the soldiers to go and kind of like clear the way for his jeep. So they kind of go out there with shovels to get rid of the wreckage and make a path and move all the dead bodies, I suppose. And like he can't wrap his head around. He's like, "I've been trying for hours to find some sort of point of reference to even compare this to. There's nothing. Nothing in anything I've ever seen before. No war damage, no storm damage, and we're still a good 15 miles from the edge of it. Fact is, it occurs to me we're now getting too close to my security perimeter to let these grunts keep with us. So he doesn't even want them to see what's going on. Throughout, besides the bodies, there has been little bits of like Christmas wreckage, I guess. We're in like December. So there's a wreath flying by before and some Christmas lights kind of thing. So he tells his men to fall back and he says, okay, this is the absolute last point to which we'll let any civilians pass. Anybody argues, shoot them. Okay. the guy he's telling us to says, sir, I respectfully remind the colonel this is not war. Martial law has not been declared in this area. And he's like, you're right, son, but you're
fired.
Yeah, and kills him. Now,
Get out.
Says, but you're also playing by the old rules, and I'm afraid they've all gone out the window. I'm like, you got clearance for that, man? Like,
that smoke you saw, that was the Constitution burning up, dude. Now get out there and start shooting some civilians for me. What?
All the civilians you can find. He's like, yeah, he says, take a look around. What do you think we're looking at here? A nuclear attack? A tornado strip? No, I think we're looking at a whole new ball game where we can kill all the civilians we want. Finally. And Spitfire chimes in. She's like, but I thought we only killed other countries' civilians. I'm like, no, now we can kill all the civilians.
It's the most dangerous game, and it's here. We don't have to go traveling to some
but I made that land. So yeah, Spitfire then
I don't think we made up too much there, believe me. But anyway.
Yeah, not too much. We're reading between the lines here. We know what's going on. So Jenny in her max armor gets cut to it, and she's losing radio contact with Jake. She's like, well, looks like I got no one to talk to myself. This is really, really weird. I agree with you, Professor Swensen. All right. So
could we take a quick break before we?
Yeah, let's give it a little break. We'll see what Jenny finds in the wreckage coming back from the second half. What will it be? Smoke and ash and dead bodies?
I'm guessing there'll be a couple of those, but a lot less than we expect.
Yeah. In fact, little Timmy's Christmas present survived.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's more or maybe just more disaster porn. I don't know. We used to like have movies like this a lot, like it was like a 70s thing, I guess, where there'd be like an airplane that's disaster, or like a skyscraper falling down or burning or something. Things where like people were like trapped, avalanche, fighting some force of nature. It's a bit like that, but we don't kind of zip around quite so many people as they might have done in a movie like that. Sort of seeing things from different angles. But okay, let's take 5 and come back with more of this excitement. Welcome back. We're halfway through the pit, and Jenny Swensen in her max armor bouncing down into the depths of the pit to see what's down there. Now, I don't think we've been following too closely, but a lot of panels and pages have time codes as we go along. Like, Jenny is headed down and in the previous page at 10:13 p.m. So it's been about 4 hours since the event happened. And we'll get a little bit more of this as she goes along. Some of it's like things that take surprisingly long to occur. But so she's heading down, and it's all like clouds and storms around her, and she's flying on instruments, I guess. And to begin with, she's like, I can't believe it. I'm already 2 miles beneath sea level and I still don't have a fix on the ground. And she's running systems checks to make sure her suit's working, but still is like 3 miles. What? Still no sign. It's not a malfunction. I really am this deep. So how big is the hole where Pittsburgh used to be?
Distracting secondary question. How does she run a systems check in that thing? Right? Like her arms are in the arms, controlling the arms. Like, is there like a little keypad in the palm? Like, is she touching the buttons with her nose? Is it voice command? Like, how's she running this thing?
Oh, that's a good question.
There are no answers.
Technical consultants will need to be consulted.
That's those little touches of new you
I mean,
realism, though,
I'll
right?
be honest, so if you look at like page 17, she is climbing into the armor and, it looks like she wouldn't just like sort of stick her arms into its arms. Like it's huge compared to her. So the scale's a little,
Well, it looks huge compared to her on that panel on the left, but then it looks kind of like body sized on the one on the right.
yeah. So, I mean, it's a good question. Like,
Because
I don't
the
know.
man amplified experiment was like, the machine amplifies the movements of the body, right? So then like the precise motor
Mm,
functions of the human body are then amplified by the bot, right? That's kind of the whole point.
right. Cybernetics is amplification of human potential, not just creation of a big red robot, which is what everyone thought
Yeah.
this was.
But this is a little more and more like Iron Man, like it can kind of scan and fly and do anything.
I mean, yeah, it's so I think its versatility is part of its like supposedly, everything advanced sensors you could want, and uh, I'm not quite sure protection for the user, and they always say there's no weapons, but we all wink wink know there's lots of weapons in there. But
Right. Well,
so yeah, the controls are a good question. How's she doing it? Like a heads up display? I don't know. Some very advanced techniques. I know
like we don't even have
the
flat
stuff that tracks
screen.
your eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't even have flat screen TVs at this point, right?
Right, right.
So if she's
So,
got a monitor screen, it's a CRT, like a big boy.
or just like that, like, bunch of flashing lights you'd get in movies back then. Like,
Oh yeah.
okay. Um, so she's thinking to herself how there's just a big hole where Pittsburgh was, and how deep is it? And she keeps going down 8 miles, 9. This is mind blowing. The deepest man has ever dug into the Earth's crust till now was only about 3 miles. I'm already 3 times that deep. And she says, I sure wish I'd read Journey to the Center of the Earth, which is really, it's one of those like, I thought all proto scientists read stuff like that, but okay. So then we time codes continue 10:41. So it's like a half hour after she started flying in. And she's like, 14 miles. And wait, I think I'm getting a sounding. Maybe I found the bottom of the pit. I'll ease off on the thrusters and slow burn through the fog cover. And we're at 11:02, and she is flying over the surface of what is now down there, which she realizes is a lake. There is a lake at the bottom. A number of rivers run through Pittsburgh. The Allegheny joins with, I forget its name. It's the Monongahela to form the Ohio River. They must all be dumping into here. So she's right. There's two rivers coming in, and one going out. So obviously that's going to be dry now. And these two rivers are just dumping water continuously into this 15-mile deep pit. So she says, that's not all that's dumping in. All the debris from the surrounding areas must have been swept up over the edge. And yeah, you see all pieces of trees and houses and cars, probably, all
Bubbling
around
green
her.
stuff.
Bubbling green. Green gold, Texas tea. No, I don't know that.
Could be worth something.
So she says there's no signs of life, and maybe, because everything was incinerated there, and everything that fell in or was pushed in by the hurricane probably didn't survive a 15-mile drop. That's pretty sensible, honestly.
It is.
But she then thinks, I'll go into the water and take a sample for chemical analysis.
What
Which,
could go
you could
wrong?
kind of float on the surface and do that, not just dive into mystery fluid.
This is the only way.
The only way to fly.
Like the
So,
Simpsons
and
when they're going to get ice from the North Pole. It's like, where else are you going to get ice?
so I don't think we saw the Max armor go underwater. Well, no, wait, the first
First
issue or
issue, yeah.
two. Yeah, she was fighting with someone in like a older version of Max armor. So, okay. Well, it's been a while. That's cool. Part of, again, like I say, the versatility going through air, going underwater. But she is down now, swimming around under this water with these suits propelling her. She's like, it's dark as pitch down here. I have to fly by instruments. And then she gets some sort of reading and thinks there's something maybe still alive. Sonar readings seem to make it out to be an automobile, an old Volkswagen. The movement's coming from inside. And we get a nice panel of the family that was stuck in the VW in the first place is still alive inside of this with their windows rolled up and they're, underwater, just, screaming and waiting to die, I guess. So
Yeah, I'm
back
not
on the
really sure
outside,
how they survived that, but especially
it's a
in
long
Volkswagen.
drop. Yeah, 15 miles. If you were dropped from 15 miles, well, I don't know. Wind disruptions were pretty severe. Who knows? Let's just hand wave a little of
Yeah.
this, just
And
so
if
we
there's
got.
still air for them in there, why isn't it floating?
That's a good point too. It is now, let's say, 11 o'clock. They were pushed over the edge at like right after it occurred at 6:08. So it's been 5 hours since they fell into the pit. So, it's a couple of questions that we'll just sort of leave to chalk up to cinematic realism. And back outside, Jenny is realizing that, there's people inside the car. So she's grabbed a hold of it and is pushing it up through the water to the surface. She's like, I won't be alive long if I don't get him out of this soup. Then there's a warning from the suit, armor seals breached. And she thinks to herself, what the seals breached? But this sardine can is airtight. No way water could get in. Wait, this may not just be water around me. Pittsburgh and 15 miles of bedrock beneath it couldn't have been disintegrated into nothingness. There must be some sort of ash, residue, something. And whatever it is, it must be so peculiar that it can penetrate my airlocks. Uh-oh.
Well, when you die, you poop, right? A lot of corpses in there.
You're swimming in it.
Also, the scale, and there's an image of like seeing through the screen of the helmet. And then, like, all of a sudden, like, it looks like she's maybe the size of the head. Like,
yeah, she's just sitting in the helmet and it's 50 feet tall. Oh, by the way, at some point it says that the armor weighs 1,260 pounds.
okay. So that'd be like
so,
a small car.
Yeah, so it shouldn't be too much larger than that car, honestly. So I don't
And
know.
it isn't really, depending on the picture. So
I realize it's a lot to kind of keep some of the stuff consistent, but armor to car, pretty consistent. Jenny to armor seems to vary a bit, but
Jim Shooter would be rolling around in his office chair if he saw this one.
Get in here. What did I tell you about consistency? He's twice as big on this page as he is on this one. What is that? Anyway, so we are at 12:01 a.m. Now it's December 23rd, 1987. And Jenny has just broken the surface, pushing this VW, which is unfortunately colored the same color as the Max armor. So we have two red objects linked together. Great.
What were you thinking?
She breaks the surface and is like, made it, thank goodness. Made it with 15 miles to go. She says, opened up the exhaust vents, but I don't feel the pit water draining. Doubt the air seal on this VW was any better off than mine. 100%. You are not anywhere near as good. The people inside have stopped screaming or asking what happened. It feels like we're back in the air. Or the kids are screaming still. So now it's 18 minutes later, and suddenly there's a problem with Jenny's suit again, and it says 20% warning, 20% impairment of jet functions. What? Overload, reduce cargo, or further impairment, 99%. Reduce cargo, but no, I can't abandon the only survivors. So,
Colonel Browning would.
Yes. So she's like, okay, only chance, ditch the car, but save the people. So she tells the suit is warning they only have seconds. And these people don't even know what this thing is. They think it's just a robot. She rips the door off of it and says, don't be alarmed, folks. Come in. I've come to get you out of there. They're like screaming and asking her to go away. And she's telling them to unbuckle and climb onto her. Keep in mind, they've been flying through the air for quite a while. And they have no idea how high up they are. But the family does do it. All, I guess, 4 of them. Climbs out of the car, and Jenny, with like a second to go, lets go of it, which flies back down. And it's 12:19. She's like, yay, we did it. Don't worry. Let's just get out of here. And then the next panel is like a half hour later.
Yeah.
Still, and you're not just like, miles above anything. You're clinging to the surface of this like giant metal robot.
They needed to go back a couple panels to when it was huge and she could have let them in.
Yeah. Please enter on the lower quadrant. The sanctuary.
Timmy,
robot.
You control the left leg, and let's Voltron this sucker.
There you go. She says, I hope I'm not crushing any of these people, but I have to hold firmly to make sure no one slips. Would have been funnier if they ended up with like the kid's broken arms or something.
Yeah.
The time she gets out there. They're out at 1:04 a.m. It's like an hour of this horrible experience, and she's like, woo, made it. There's the edge of the pit. Woo, took me a bit, but we are out. There you go, folks. She lets them down on the ground. And then suddenly it's the old like flash, giant lights come on. And the army is there. So they take the family, and the family thanks Jenny. Bless you, whoever you are. If you hadn't shown up, my family, it's okay. Oh, and
I like oh, mommy, that transformer saved us.
Yeah, this is going back for that one. Yeah, the soldiers are thinking, wow, it's that Spitfire robot we were briefed about. Didn't realize it was so big. Yeah, the transformer saved us. The family goes on to what we can only presume is a long and happy life after that.
Right. I'm guessing even that Volkswagen survived, given how durable it seemed to be.
So let's see. I just want to point out that when Brown Mac stopped their advance, they were 15 miles from the edge of the pit. So I'm not quite sure what kind of a base camp we've got set up, but I'm not also sure how close it is to the edge of the pit now.
Right, because he kind of made a big deal. He didn't want any of the grunts seeing it or something, but
yeah.
I'm assuming that
they popped right over the edge. And I would say it's, let's be charitable and say they were headed in the right direction to find the army base camp when they were getting out. So she picks them up and is kind of not just flying up, but she's flying towards wherever the armor was coming, because it's a bit much for it to be like have surrounded the whole thing. I
Right.
mean, it's like 150 miles of, death zone to
Maybe
uh
they came out like they would have the ability to track the suit as it's coming up out of
yeah,
the
maybe
pit,
they
and
could
then
track
maybe they
her. Yeah.
drove some trucks out to meet her, and then are driving him back to see Colonel Fascist.
That's also possible.
I mean, Mac Browning, right?
McIntyre Browning, yes. So she's thinking to herself, I should feel good about saving 4 lives, but all I feel is numb thinking of the millions who are vaporized or drowned or buried or snuffed out or torn apart by winds or crushed under VW or drowned in the water. Oh, she did drown already. Never mind.
Yeah.
And the guy says, Spitfire, Colonel Browning wants to see you ASAP. Are you talking to me or the armor? Because you call us both Spitfire. So 1:29 a.m. She shows up at one of those army tents that he has now made a HQ out of and talks directly to Colonel Mac Browning. You're the only one who's seen this thing close up, Swensen. I've read the transcript of your signals, but I want to hear it from your own lips. She's like, anyway, she's like, I'm not a soldier. I don't profess to have the right stuff. All down there was all I could do to keep from puking my guts out, which would have been really gross in that confined space of that
Right.
armor I was wearing. But
All
anyway,
those dead American people. I'm not used to dead American people.
so pale, so colorless. I didn't understand. I guess we all do bleed the same. You, me, everyone I've killed working for the CIA, all of us.
Yeah.
We get a little dark sometimes with our Spitfire work, but anyway, back at it.
Sorry, Josh.
She she gives sort of off panel, so we just get like a few panels of um Mac's response, this like visceral disgust as he's listening to her report. So she gives him whatever, and he's just, dear God.
Hmm.
So he goes outside. Sergeant, pass word along. I want this base camp sealed up tight. No signals in and out unless I send them. Nothing, except it comes through me. So Jenny's like, she's like, I hope that's not just some macho trip you're on, Colonel. Keep your chatter to yourself, Swensen. My orders apply to you too. Then I really will puke. Okay. Relationship's falling apart pretty fast here. Mac phones Cheyenne Mountain at 1:43 a.m. and they tell some superiors tell him, yes, that's clear. You can take this as from the commander in chief without actually showing the commander in chief on page. So it's like some superior is saying, yep, go ahead, martial law, whatever you need, break the Constitution, whatever you want. You have maximum authority in this. Do anything you deem necessary to keep that area sealed. I'll repeat that, Colonel. Anything you deem necessary. If you want to shoot people down or just shoot them in the back, whatever, the president will back you 100%. Sure, he's asleep right now, and I'm kind of doing this on his authority, but I'm also not really waking him up to check. So, anyway, we cut unsuspiciously over to a small helicopter, which has WROK on the side of it. I looked up, and that doesn't seem to be like a TV station or anything. So, but there's two guys in there. One's the pilot, and the other one's a reporter. I don't know about you, Smitty, but I'm seeing the biggest dang story to come down the pike, and I ain't about to tell anybody it ain't there. And they're like, well, what happened to Pittsburgh? And nothing's down there. They can't see anything, but they see a army attack helicopter coming up behind them, which is now radioing to them. I repeat, you are in security airspace. You are instructed to follow us back to a holding area. And the reporters are not acting sympathetically at this point. Oh, man, this just gets better and better. Yeah, I read you. Can you read this? And the guy's like thumbing his nose at the army helicopter. I find it hard to believe anyone would act like this with like as much weaponry as this helicopter has on it,
Especially a
obviously.
pilot, who you generally take as a fairly serious person.
Yeah, you have to like be licensed and all kinds of things and not just like I'm sure part of the licensing process is like so if the army orders you to not go somewhere or to just clear the airspace, what are you going to do? Flip them the bird and show them the butt. So yeah, the army guy is on the radio like, look, buddy, don't screw around. This is serious. And the reporters are saying, hey, there's a story down there, and a little thing called the First Amendment says we got a right to report it. Does not exactly say you have a right to enter a forbidden zone, but
No,
I don't
no.
recall. No, okay. So the pilots on this attack helicopter, Skywise 6 to ground zero, ask Browning for orders. He says, you know the situation, Skywise. Give them one last warning. They still won't turn back. Shoot them down, Skywise. Jenny, of course, is still in the tent, standing around gabbing. No, you can't. And Mac just says, I have a feeling I'm going to get very tired of hearing that phrase in the next few hours. Understand this, Swensen. There is nothing I can't do.
There's nothing
Nothing.
I'd rather do than annihilate civilians. Civilian murders.
At last. Oh, the pilots aren't, too trigger happy. They're like, you copy? It's your last warning. Turn back now or we'll be forced to stop you. You can't bluff us, flyboy. Do your worst. Kaboom.
Oof.
So,
Actually, more of a badwoom, but
yeah. But the point is made either way, I guess.
yeah, it was interesting because I looked up kind of some stuff, and of course, colonel is below general. Special forces kind of operate on their own thing. It could be direct from the president, so that sort of makes sense. But why is this guy in charge in particular? But if there's not even martial law, like the military really shouldn't be operating within those borders, I suppose, right? Unless they're responding to an invasion. But under military law, like just even sedition can be punishable by death. So
Yeah, I
there's some
mean
gray there.
it's a gray zone because I mean I don't know of like any actual historical thing I can compare this to very easily where you would say this is reaches a level at which the army descends on everything and sort of shuts everything down. So like I mean you
Maybe
remember
he's
in
trying to prevent like a world war or something like that. It's like the best case scenario I can give Colonel Browning, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting they haven't sort of gone into it yet because they're mostly just kind of investigating it as a curiosity. It's an unexplained phenomenon. But I mean, the reason they would grab this military guy and throw an army detachment along with him is because one of the first thoughts is like there's a weapon and someone's attacking us with it. So
Right.
the idea that like a city disappears doesn't say like someone had an accident. It says, this was done on purpose, which, from what we've seen is not, uh, so yeah. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I was just thinking like 9/11, if there was any plane that was like, yeah, look, I want to get a good view of this to like they would have shot them the hell down too. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know. The
Again, but yeah, again, that's even sort of different because they're worried that another plane might be another attack, whereas there's not much worry that these reporter dudes are dangerous, right?
yeah, it's questionable like we'll get to like the end of the story to see how much is sealed up they're gonna be at the end of the day, but
Yeah.
we flash over to the witness. It's 2 a.m. and he's got these people shouting at him, destroyer, monster, murderer. And he's like, just saying, I had nothing to do with it. I honestly, I was just standing there. The tall blonde guy, that's who you want. Can you just stop it? He flies away and then notices they're flying after him. So, oh, of course, they're phantoms like me. Great. This he's a little worried that like maybe that they will tear him apart or something. He's screaming, and just when he's about to give up, suddenly he sees that, oh, they're gone. So he is back floating above the pit, which is now filled with smoke and devastation. But he's just similar to where he started. He's just, everyone's gone, everything. Below is nothing but a smoldering crater. What happened to it all? I couldn't have imagined it all. Ghostly survivors? What is really down there? Again, people
A little
seem
bit
to,
of mystery, maybe.
yeah, there's a lot of questions about what's going on.
Actually,
Here,
wouldn't it be kind of an amazingly weird and interesting story direction if the entire people of Pittsburgh got turned into like ghostly paranormals, like The
witnesses.
Witness?
Yeah. That is a 400,000, 600,000 of these like phantoms. Yeah, that would be fun, but given their limit, like how limited the story potential of one witness has been, I don't know.
Yeah.
It is at 3:18. Colonel Browning is waiting for something from Jenny, and he says, Swensen, you've been sweating over that oversized soup can for the past 2 hours. Now, I need that video transmission you said you could play me so I can decide what to do. She said, it's not just a videotape, Colonel. I've been feeding data into Max's computer graphics program.
Ooh.
Ooh. And in order to generate a composite image of the entire Pittsburgh area as it now exists. And he says, how long is this art project of yours going to take? She says, the last megabits, bits, data have been entered, Colonel. Should all be on screen any moment now. And they have, yeah. So they're looking at like the inside of her helmet. So like there is computer display in there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It looks kind of
So,
like an Atari game, which
and
suits the times, honestly. I mean,
yeah.
you could do a little better, but
I can just picture like the rough graphics you would have gotten from a movie at this time. Yeah, it'd
yeah,
be like
all
about that.
green on black, kind of good
Yeah,
times.
exactly. A couple of pixels. So yeah, this is the whatever graphic that we've seen at the end of the book, sort of, except from kind of an angle where we've got like a flat circle that's the um, ground level, and then underneath like a hemisphere, and then she sort of calculates out over it, so where the original sphere was. So she says, yeah, 50 miles across, 15 miles deep, whatever caused it punched a hole in the ozone layer and scooped out so much from the Earth's crust that the magma layer is laid bare. So they can sort of calculate out what was like this whole original sphere of destruction. So then Browning's like, your soup can, is it operational yet? Have you filtered out whatever that sludge you told me seeped in? I suppose so. Really? You just hosed it out, this mystery juice. Good. I need you to go back in there, gather more data for the science boys. Yay, science boys.
Shouldn't she
Says the
be the science boys?
she is supposedly the science girl. The computer diagram you showed me spooks me. This area seems very unstable. I can't imagine what the environmental impact's going to be. Wow, he's an environmentalist.
Yeah.
You never know. He says we need more data, much more. Sir, there may be more survivors in the area. Not until I shoot him, there isn't. I mean, no. She says, maybe not on the crater, but along the edge, and we could go around, and maybe they're collapsed or house or caught under debris. I want to use a Spitfire suit. Why does she call it that? To search them. Devastated areas so big, so inaccessible, no one else will be able to reach them in time but me. And he's just noble sentiments, but I categorically forbid it. You are a government agent, Swensen. Have been for at least 12 issues now. And as far as this area is concerned, I'm the government. So you stow it. So she says, glad you have that bird stitched to your collar, Colonel, because it saves me from having to give you one. She wanted to flip him the bird.
That would have been an amazing panel, though, to be fair. They should have included it.
Marvel's the Pit, mature readers only. Yeah, yeah.
If you can show a corpse, you can show a middle finger, Marvel.
She tells him he's got 15 seconds to clear the launch area, and he starts yelling at her, "Get your butt out of that 2-ton Tinker Toy right now, or I'll have you court-martialed," which only affects people in the military. She does a countdown, and he runs for it wisely. And yeah, the next page, the suit is blazing up out of the tent, probably rather dangerously, flying over him and a couple other guards. Browning shouts out, "Spitfire's gone AWOL. Shoot her down."
And if you happen to hit any civilians, that might make me feel better about this whole thing.
Well, he pulls out a sidearm and fires off a couple of rounds at her himself. "Blast you, Swensen. I'm the law here. Without law, civilization will crumble." He continues shooting and yelling as she's out of sight. "Go ahead, dig a few people out of the mud and trash. It'll make you feel good." But when this flipping hole starts causing the rest of the earth to shift and quake, and millions of more people begin to die, I hope you remember how you failed to provide us the scientific data to tell us where to evacuate. And one of the guards, as he's firing off in the same direction, is thinking to himself, what's he screaming about?
The guards are more like real people. This guy's nuts.
New universe realism check withstand. So she thinks that the suit is built to withstand anti-tank shells, so she's in good shape, but she's really gone and done it this time. Some top government special operative to insubordinate renegade, all in the space of a minute and a half. Sorry, Jake. Hope you can forgive me for this. Jake, whatever your name was.
Brevis?
And so she's tells her sensors to show me some signs of life. We're now at 4:21 again.
And Jenny wakes up inside the mobile laboratory of Professor Swensen with the 3 Optimus Prime trucks, and oh, that was a weird dream I had.
Whew, what a nightmare. Well, thank God that's over. She's
good thing
of course it's a dream.
5 troubleshooters to keep me company.
We're back at the lake at the bottom of the pit, and the witness is kind of walking around, hovering a few feet over the top of the water. He's thinking to himself, the city's gone, nothing but a huge crater rapidly filling with water and debris. And I guess I just imagine it all, unable to face the reality of what happened. I went insane. I began to hallucinate a scenario far easier for me to accept than the death of 1 million people. I imagine survivors like me, but I'm just a ghost, blah, 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 blah. And strangely enough, just then, the Max armor pops out of a cloud around him. And Jenny is thinking to herself, what in the world? A man in a trench coat flying. First time anyone has seen the witness, I believe.
Yeah, if you don't count the antibody, I guess, right?
All right. Okay, the antibody. There we go. So she says, halt and identify yourself. And interestingly, the witness now thinks that he is hallucinating again. I understand wanting to see survivors, but why big red robots? He sinks down into the water to kind of make himself disappear. And Jenny is thinking that I saw a guy a minute ago, but now it's gone, and the sensor said there's nothing there. So am I losing it? Anyway, she thinks, even though it takes like an hour to fly in and out of the pit, she's like, I guess there's nothing alive down here, so I'll just search around the perimeter instead. Curious moment.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. It doesn't really amount to anything, but maybe it will later. I'm not looking
Future.
forward to more Witness in future comics, but
Oh, thank God you came back, Witness. Now someone can relay your message to you. Jenny like knew Starbrand, so they had crossed over a couple of times. So if the Witness described the tall blonde man he saw,
yeah.
I don't know. So he thinks, that he's got to figure out a purpose for himself, and there's no reason I was drawn to Pittsburgh and made to live through this unless I make a reason. And by the power that makes me what I am, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to find the tall blonde man and make certain he's dead. And if he's not, I will not rest until I find a way to make him pay. Pittsburgh, you shall be avenged.
I don't think the game of I'm not touching you is very effective when you're a ghost.
This is when the Witness became the first of the new universe's what we call Avengers. But
I just imagine him like Ken Connell's like in hiding somewhere and he's like trying to focus all of his paranormal power to like rattle a cupboard or something like
spooky, isn't it? Spooky.
go away,
So,
Witness. Let
so
justice do the avenging.
it's almost 5 a.m. and Mac is thinking I should be doing something. I should be leading my troops against the enemy. But who's the enemy here? Who'll take responsibility? Who can we pit our might against to set the word right again? And I think he means the world right again.
Must kill more innocent people.
Weird, like this balloon, it seems like the lettering's a little like off, like it would have been spaced better because it's just one word by itself on the bottom line.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just then we got one of these communication guys. Excuse me, Colonel, there's something coming over the air you should see. It's a news show, Nightline, and they have already figured out something's up because the Russians released satellite photos of the eastern United States, which show the area around Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to be totally leveled. And Pentagon officials could not be reached to confirm or deny, and Pittsburgh's been totally blacked out since 6 o'clock last night. Browning thinks to himself, the news got out despite everything I've done. The news got out. I mean, how long were they expecting to hide this? I thought they were just trying
Right?
to lock it down, but it's
Yeah.
like,
But I guess that's
okay.
why he killed the helicopter reporter.
Now he's got to go kill everyone on Nightline. No. He thinks to himself that civilian copter had shot down. There was no need, except for the sheer joy of it, I guess. Lousy Russians. Probably wanted to be the first to spread the word so they wouldn't get blamed. Well, I'm going to blame them anyway. Someone else is on the phone, says, Colonel, Skywise has got Spitfire in her sights. They want to know if they should open fire. No, tell Skywise to hold fire. Enough damage has been done for one day. Colonel walks out of the tent into some light, and we have the final time, 6:06 a.m., 12 hours after all this chaos broke loose. Dawn, the color of blood and rust. Last night I told someone we were looking at a whole new ball game here, one where the old rules don't apply, where the ballpark has been turned inside out. Mixing
Forced
metaphors
baseball metaphor there. Yeah.
Where neither the players nor the spectators know the score. Okay, dude.
I'm tired. I better go write my report.
So we close out with a nice kind of bookend with, instead of the witnesses text piece, we have the colonel's report. Again, it's white type on black to give it a little more gravitas. And I don't want to do it word by word here.
Yeah. Colonel's report. all I can think about is the missed opportunities, the civilians that I may have been able to kill, but did not.
He says, by the way, he's in the Army's Defense Intelligence Agency. I would have thought the DIA would be like a, multi-service thing, but he says he's seen a lot of disturbing things in Southeast Asia, in Grenada, in El Salvador. What I saw in Pittsburgh last night blows everything away. What did he do in Grenada? That was like a weekend.
He killed lots and lots of civilians, is what he did to beat that joke to death.
Oh, it's good to beat that one. He says you know, the, the world ended as we knew it yesterday, but with 1 million people dead or dying, 100 towns and villages destroyed, with the earth bleeding from a mortal wound. He really thinks there's that the geological effects are going to be massive, which is interesting. Right?
Yeah, it's a little questionable, honestly, but
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
weather, yeah.
It's an angle, yeah.
Mhm.
He doesn't understand why it happened. He calls it the Pittsburgh effect, like the so-called white event a year and a half ago, are phenomena without precedent beyond the realm of known science. Someone suggested that the so-called superhero who turned up in Pittsburgh may have had something to do with this. I'm betting we're never going to know. They did, because I mean, that was part of the thing, was that he had gone public. People
Right.
knew there's a superhero in Pittsburgh.
And there could have been a moment, at least, to have kind of tied him to that convention explosion, potentially.
Right. So
Because
depending
at
on
least
whether
people
any
knew he
word
was going to
got
be
out.
there and that it exploded. So,
Yeah, and that was in the morning. That was 10 a.m., which, as we said, that should have been enough of like a, earth-changing event, enough people dying that, they take this stuff like as deadly serious and change everyone's approach to things. But well, anyway, we'll just continue and finish up Mac's talk. Pittsburgh is gone completely. This fact must be understood absolutely. The city was within a sphere of earth and atmosphere measuring 50 miles in diameter, which is now completely converted into this strange inert material now at the bottom of the crater, the pit, as I've heard it ghoulishly referred to. Our chances of analyzing a pure sample of this material were destroyed by the storms and debris that followed the effect. Also, the waters of the Monongahela and Allegheny rivers, which are pouring over the rim, creating a spectacular waterfall. So he's talking about ruptured tectonic plates, volcanic activity, hole in the ozone, and a planet that's a whole different place from where it was when we all went to sleep in our safe, snug beds 2 nights ago. Merry Christmas.
uh,
Actually, that's not the end. We also have this nice diagram of the pit on the last page. The sort of sideways view where we go from like the Earth crust to levels of the atmosphere, and then a map of southwestern Pennsylvania where the area of destruction of the pit, as well as there's an extra line that I just noticed has the extent of sphere's overhang, because pit's center was 10 miles up. There's a zone where as far as that went, I guess. The Pittsburgh airport, all the way out to Greensburg, Evans City. Yeah, that's quite a zone of destruction there. I was driving around Indianapolis not long ago, and like that's one of those cities that has a big belt highway
yeah.
system. It's about 30 miles around. And so that's like similar to in size to like this kind of zone. Pittsburgh doesn't really have that, and you just are in sort of suburbs and whatever. It's close to the Ohio border, which is, I presume, where that Army base is staging. And then they have various details about the volume and number of people probably killed. Volume of Earth eradicated 1488 cubic miles. So,
Maybe
some of that'll,
somebody still remembered their volume of a sphere formulas and such.
yeah, at least one person Did some hard work on a calculator back to get some of that numbers, but
Yeah. Hey, remember back when like the new universe, we were talking about the launch of the new universe and how like the city of Pittsburgh was a little bit excited to have like a comic book set in Pittsburgh with a Pittsburgh superhero and stuff.
right. Yeah. See, that's the thing. You get sort of on the map with a superhero universe, and the next thing you know, there's some, supervillain destroying everything.
Burn, you
Uh,
mean?
so let's see. I wanted to throw out some things that I've come across if about the destruction of Pittsburgh. There's a
Yeah.
book published 10, 15 years ago. That's I think it's categorized science fiction by Tom Sweterlish called Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And it posits a future in which Pittsburgh has been destroyed by a terrorist nuclear weapon, which incinerated most of it. And it's a story about a guy who was like out of town at the time, and so he lost his family and everything. And I mean, there's a lot of really like diggy, his memory is really killing him, and he's like always sort of losing himself in the memory of it, thanks to like an advanced virtual reality kind of duplicate of it that they've created to as a memorial. So, a real interesting story. Kind of it's got rough spots at times, but an enjoyable one. I also noticed that I think, second edition of Gamma World, a TSR role-playing game, which is like a post-apocalyptic future. One of
Mhm.
the the settings that they give you as a starting point is like a nuked Pittsburgh. So
Yep.
that's Pittsburgh. Everything has like slightly changed, you know, hundreds of years in the future. Anyway, there's yeah,
Don't forget
seems like
Fallout 3.
there's Fallout 3.
That was set in DC, but then they had like downloadable extra content where you could kind of forge away from the game's map. And one of them was you could go into Pittsburgh, and it was in fact called the Pit.
Oh, nice. Okay.
The city was not like nuked, but all of America was in the story of that game, of course. So then you know taken over by mutants and raiders and very road warrior-esque bad guys and such.
Okay, nice. So do you want my top 10 list of other cities they could have destroyed?
Absolutely.
Well, start off with the two like most obvious, New York City or Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
I mean, they're the classics, but for a reason.
Yeah, seat
Also,
of the government, most famous city.
yeah, New York, you the financial center. In DC, they've finally thrown off the yoke of the oppressors. America could have risen free at last. But anyway, yeah, that's the next best thing to destroy if you don't have New York. Um, Buenos Aires. I don't know if you remember Starship Troopers, the movie that
Oh
starts
yeah,
with
yeah.
the bugs destroyed that. Um, I think Colorado Springs was destroyed by a meteor strike or something in the background to Cyberpunk 2020.
Hmm.
Um, and that's a nice kind of isolated one as well. Los Angeles, that pops up in Escape from LA, I think. There was like I forget, it was like half destroyed or something. But I'll be honest, Los Angeles is difficult to destroy just because it's so spread out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, New York, you can do a lot of damage in a small space, but LA, it always seemed like, I don't know, you could throw a couple of nukes in there and, half the people still be like just going about their business.
At least,
Riverside and Orange County won't even notice.
at least get Hollywood, I guess.
Indeed. San Francisco, I don't see too much of like futures where it's been destroyed, which is weird considering it's always seems like one of the most precarious metropolises to me in
Yeah.
terms
Well,
of
they
like
got their earthquake movies already, so maybe people didn't want to bother with the explosion movies.
yeah, it struck me as funny that like Cyberpunk 2020 like had like a map of America and what like the disasters had hit like almost every other part of America, but maybe because the guys who wrote it lived in San Francisco, that's like the one city that wasn't completely like uh destroyed in the cyberpunk dark future. Interesting. Seriously, if you want a city to destroy, and I've lived there too, so I really shouldn't put it on the list, but Denver or Salt Lake City are both high and dry. So they
Hmm.
don't have like major like rivers flowing into them, which would create like even more weird problems. Um, so they're kind of they're also sort of isolated, so not as much environmental impact on populated areas around you. Detroit and Baltimore are both considered pretty dysfunctional. I forget if like the 80s they were considered trash cities, but um, they're kind of they're
Hey,
one
one
of
of them
these
is a
like
major port. The other one is a city.
yeah, they're both on water, lakes or the ocean too. And similarly, Boston, uh, all the smarty pants from the first few issues of Spitfire can just, you wish the troubleshooters were here now, don't you? Anyway,
Mhm.
I think it like I said, the all the geology talk makes me think they were trying to be, have some realistic effects of doing this. Um, which would have been much worse if it was like on the Great Lakes or on the ocean,
Right.
because I don't know how much volume that would hold, and what kind of an effect that would have on like the sea level and stuff.
Yeah,
So I
probably
don't know.
less with the ocean, but definitely more with the lakes, right? Like that would drop.
Yeah, that could have really been like our lake has disappeared. It all flowed into this hole in the ground. I don't know. I think the number one other city they could have attacked, Fairfield, Connecticut, was apparently where John Byrne lived,
Of
who claims that there was nothing personal about this whole thing. So,
course not.
well, then why isn't Connecticut
I
disappeared?
must ruin the character, the setting, the side characters, the narrative.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. There's I
Yeah, I think
mean,
there's interviews where that have come out where other editors have talked about like that because I think for a while it was sort of assumed he was trying to stick it to Jim Shooter, but then people have come out and said like no, like we talked about it as something that would make an impact, and this just sort of came up, and we all liked the idea kind of thing, but I'm not sure I buy it to be honest.
I can understand like Mackie and Gruenwald not being, fixated on it, but it's like playing like the Ouija board. All it takes is one person who kind of wants to nudge the thing in the right direction. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
just hey, well, what about Pittsburgh?
Well, Pittsburgh would work. Oh, hey, I just took over Starbrand. I could sort of move things in that direction. That would be great, right? And the Starbrand has a lot of power, so that would blow up really big, right? Oh, yeah. Uh, why are you working that angle so hard there, John? Oh, no reason, Mark and Howard. So anyway, what do you think? It's up to you, but I'm just saying Pittsburgh are perfect. Perfect.
You
Yeah.
remember that rules comparison I made, like in Starbrand 12, where it's like Duck and Myron are like, Ken Connell always likes to do things his way, and that's
You're right.
maybe
Yeah.
like a little dig at Shooter, and then you got this Colonel Browning who's sort of bloodthirsty. He's like, rules are out the window, no more rules. The new ball game, new editor in chief or something. We
The
can
Tom
imagine
DeFalco of
connections
the
where
world.
perhaps they're not, but
So Browning's interesting. I was I remembered from one of the like Marvel Age previews that they were talking about they want, a new character who's going to be in this thing that was going to be, I think one of them said it was going to be like as if Oliver North was created by Jack Kirby. I don't think that's quite what we got here because he's not like looking to punch Hitler. So
Yeah.
he's, North, okay, but I was kind of expecting something a little more Tom Clancy, who was just sort of, it was sort of early days for him and that whole techno thriller genre. So, like a hard ass military guy as part of the mix, but he's like maybe a little more sensible than this. This guy gets a little emotional at times. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm super biased because I've just been watching all the films, but it just reminds me of like one of the military guys that sends Rambo in and then just ditches him. It's like,
Yeah.
we're not gonna send that rescue mission after all. We don't really want to rescue the POWs. It's like,
He does have yeah, like you can't trust him
yeah,
quality to him
he
that
seems irredeemably bad to me, honestly. Like, maybe they were trying to not make him seem like such a super villain, but you know,
yeah,
if
I think he's intended to be more yeah, middle of the road, like maybe a good guy in a bad situation, you know what I mean? Because he'll talk about like how uh yeah, that this is completely outside his and everyone else's experience. So
right, and they have panels of him like, the horror kind of thing, but
that was his family in the beginning when the helicopter picked him up too. So it's not like he's like completely devoid of humanity, I guess. I don't
uh,
know. Okay, okay.
maybe.
Is I found the arguing with Spitfire to be a little contrived. I mean, it's like at the beginning of that scene, he's like, "Look, you've been working on this for 2 hours. Could you just show me whatever it is?" And she's like, "Okay, can I go now?" No.
Yeah. And did we just reboot Jenny Swensen and the Max suit back to like phase one where she's like on the run, or a rogue
Yeah, except
operator
now
just kind of doing her own thing?
yeah, but now her cover is blown and she's got no troubleshooters. So
Hmm.
great.
Nor a book to continue the story, but I'm pretty sure she
Yeah.
shows up.
Well, I think, yeah, so we've got follow-up books that'll, tie-ins, and I think we saw some Max armors on some on the covers of something coming up. So I know we try not to look into the future, but it's always like sometimes we'll see something and issue it two ahead of time. Um, but I don't know. What more do we have to say about this? Any more thoughts?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I generally don't like this direction for the new universe, I suppose. I mean, we can maybe talk about it more in a recap show, but like, I get the idea. It's like it's a top-down editorial shakeup, right? Like, we need to do something to juice things up. But you've just recreated the line, right? You trimmed it down. You got all these characters taking new directions, which we've just barely started to see, like what Justice is doing and what Cyforce is doing now, and they got exploded and split up too. What's gonna, is the clinic still gonna stick around in DP7? Like, I don't think those books needed a big shakeup. Like, I think they could have held their own. So like having
Yeah.
the super explosion, big sea change for perhaps, how it can impact the stories and kind of the greater new universe. Yeah, I don't, I'm not a huge fan of it. Um,
I mean, pe people on the Facebook page will sometimes say they really, thought this was where things took a better turn. So
yeah,
there are fans of it. Yeah.
yeah, I, I haven't
I'm
read it,
with
so
you on a lot of it because it's like it feels rushed, as I've said before. Like as you're saying, you've got new creative teams, they're sort of finding their new footing. And I would have at least given this to like issue 24, you know what I mean? So
Right.
you've got like a year of like we're just, trying things out, and then it's like, okay, year 2, we'll get some consistent guys in there or some directions that people like, sort of build that up. And then maybe at the end of that, okay, there's a big event, but again, it's probably like, you know, time, something for a recap show, but like having more warning or like people trying to stop a disaster, those are good stories too,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, you
Hmm.
want to throw a grade at this?
C.
I was also thinking a C. I was pretty generous to Starbrand, largely on technical levels because I, disagreed with some of the direction. But actually, listening to one of our earlier podcasts, I was judging that on the basis of character consistency, and seems like I should have downgraded it considerably based on the like, oh, we've completely changed how we look at these characters.
Yeah.
Anyway,
This one to
this
me.
one
Oh yeah, go
was
ahead.
the story was stretched out, but kind of like the annuals. So yeah, the new character, what didn't really grab us. I mean, if there's like 3 or 4 guys who took creator credit for that, it wasn't really worth the effort. Um, Spitfire, out of all 3 characters, gets the least pages. I noticed
Hmm.
they they're always dumping on her. I think the witness is always like, okay. I mean, you could use them a little, but way too
Yeah.
much here.
If it's one of those things though, like if you completely erase the witness from this story, it changes nothing. Like he's totally superfluous.
It's actually, yeah. If I ever, uh, the like the comic strip Garfield without Garfield, where someone just goes
Yeah.
in and Photoshop. Yeah, if you did this, like photoshopped out the witness into out of scenes, it would just be like, okay, well,
You know, it might honestly be better. You'd get all these like quiet, cool swirls of color and destruction and pit stuff, and like
yeah,
it could
maybe they
work.
just didn't trust themselves enough to do something like that. It would be a little more experimental in the 80s, but yeah,
Yeah.
if you had, I mean, like higher quality production, you could do that.
Yeah, like imagine, instead of the witness, you've got all these scenes of like Pittsburghians going about their daily lives, driving in, shopping for Christmas presents, and then, like way in the back, like up in the sky, the little image of Ken Connell up there, and so like the impact of him
Yeah, like
causing this explosion, like, but then kind of relating it back to like showing some real people that actually
yeah. If
died
you
instead
had
of
like,
just faceless masses.
yeah, that family didn't even get like a name as near as I can tell. So they
Yeah,
didn't, and didn't really work as like POV. We weren't really staying with them. So
yeah. I mean, I
yeah,
feel
I mean
bad for them because
that's
they
kind
didn't
of like
die.
that novel I mentioned. I mean, you see this horrible event from different people's point of view. You see memories of it haunting people for years afterwards. And then like even the disaster movies that they're probably getting using as part of their source material it wouldn't just be a family, there'd be 5 families. One of them dies immediately, one of them is a long ways away, and one of them is on the border clinging to life.
Yeah,
Then so could have been done better. The art is serviceable, but it does, honestly, I find it doesn't grab me either. So
yeah.
yeah.
I think the art, like the environmental art, I kind of like the world, the pit, the crater stuff is done well. The characters are okay, and then there's some definite issues with the scale of the suit. But yeah, it's just kind of boring, honestly. Like it just reads boring. It's like when Superman died, and then they did like a whole series of comics that was like Funeral for a Friend. Like I read through those a couple of years ago, and I'm like, this is boring. Like I get like they're trying to show like, all right, this is a big deal. Something happened, right? The
Right,
pit
right.
or Superman dies. So let's focus on the aftermath. But it's like, okay, military guy shows up, blows up a helicopter. Jenny Swensen rescues one family and gets into a fight with military guy. Done. Right? Like, what have I
Yeah.
read? Not much.
325, dude.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't think I
Okay.
paid that much for it, but
Let's hope not. Although it doesn't show up in the quarter bins as well as much as the others do.
it does not. No.
Well, that is it for this week's episode, our special double-sized graphic novel episode. Next time, we'll look at more fallout from these catastrophic events with the follow-ups Injustice and DP7. Both are PITT tie-ins, so let's see what they have to say. Justice number 18, a major American city has been blasted into oblivion. Was the catastrophe, okay, my pronunciation's gone, caused by a paranormal? And if it was, are there other paranormals ready to unleash even more destruction? That's what Justice seeks to discover. Wait till you see the answers he uncovers. Written by Peter David, penciled by Lee Weeks, inked by Tony DeZuniga.
I mean, I'm kind of hoping there's not another equally powerful paranormal looking to make PITT 2, but okay. DP718. What has happened to Blur's family? Of course, this is Jeff from DP7. We're using his code name now. In a suspense-filled tie-in to The Pit, Blur dashes across America to discover if his family survived the annihilation. Afraid of the consequences for Blur, if his worst fears are realized, the DP7 secretly follows. But their journey will not be easy because all roads leading to the city are bad roads.
Ooh.
Written by Gruenwald, penciled by Paul Ryan, inked by Danny Bulinati.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. www.kickersinc.com. New Universe Podcast at gmail.com. Send us an email, right? Why not?
Which city would you like to see destroyed? Let us know in the comments.
We won't let the CIA know what you decide.
No judging. This has been the voice of the new universe, and we will see you back at the spinner rack.
Don't throw away the duck.
It's your universe, idiot.
Nuke me with the new. Feel like we've been nuked many times lately. A lot of nuking going on. Like last 3 comics have all been nuked.
Oh, this is more
Tune
than
in
I
next
expected.
time, less nuking.